Hi everybody, my name is Reynaldo Quintero, also known as Reiq, and today I'll be coloring this recent illustration I did using only the Chameleon markers. I'll be showing you my process as well as showing you some of the cool tips that can be used while using these markers. This illustration coloring today is a printed out version of the original scanned line art. I found super fun being able to try different approaches and new ideas with my illustration by having multiple copies of the line art. This helped me to be more bold with my marker combinations and possible variations. For first, I recommend you, if you're working with these markers, is to have a sheet of paper, marker paper sheet, so you can try color combinations and see what can work well with the illustration. Also, it will help you remind how these colors will look after they dry, because once you apply it and after they dry, they tend to look a little bit different once it dries, obviously. When I started doing this illustration, and the first stage is to start applying the main colors that I know that I will be using for, like example, the leaves and the flowers, and all of those I already have in mind, you know. It's really easy to start doing them. For the green, I start using the GR1, which is the green apple. That's a nice green that I like a lot. I use the flat color. I didn't infuse a pen. Then I moved to the PK3, which is the bubble gum, and I did that light rose kind of pink tone. And for the dark tone, I use the BO2, which is the mauve version. This color is like really nice. I infuse a marker and to add a little bit of dark tone to some of the fruit. Because it's a really small area, I didn't need to infuse the paint too much with this for coloring this section. Okay. And I figured I might try a little bit of a solid color, and this is just to start having a sense of the coloring for the illustration. As I said before, it's good to have different copies of your work and try different combinations. Maybe you find that you might want to change the color of the leaves of the flower, and then you want to try to do other combinations. And once I also had a good idea for the coloring of the wings. I was looking recently to a few exotic birds, and I thought like a combination of yellow and green will work really nice. And I started using the JO2, which is the mellow yellow, and that will serve as the base for my yellow tones. I think that for these kind of illustrations that I like to do, I like to start applying a base color and then work on top of that. I tried the yellow, and I'm waiting for it to dry, and while I wait, I infuse a baby blue marker first, and to start seeing what kind of color it will give me. And then after trying infusing it and having some gradation, I moved to the turquoise marker, which is the BG3, and I'm trying to see how can I do that transition from light to dark. And as I'm rendering this wing and the feathers, I think about the volume of the feathers, and infusing the pen for like 10 seconds or less will give me this gradation that is really nice. And at this point, I'm experimenting. I know the color that I want, but I started to apply on the paper, like trying to give form to these wings. And I thought well, the frontal, this area is gonna be a little bit lighter, and as I go backwards, it's getting dark and dark and dark. So it'll give me that roundness that I want for the wings, you know, and each of the feathers. I also try to mix with the baby blue here, and this is my experimenting a little bit. And then I move back again to the turquoise, and I'm having it infused for, let's say, 10 seconds or maybe less. Sometimes I just need a little bit so I don't infuse it for too long. But I'm just trying to give this as a base for the coloring. I feel that while it looks good, I'm still having the white of the paper there, and I'll have to work trying to fill that white with another maybe lighter blue or a little bit of green. And I'm working with the markers. I'm getting used to them. Like as I'm working, I'm getting used to the amount of time I have to wait for it to mix with the solution there. As I go, I like to wait a little bit. I'm waiting and making a pause, seeing how the colors are drying. And as they dry, I think about new ideas and new combinations. I thought that I would like to use a different blue, trying to see if another blue will bring me some kind of like another variation, and trying to make the colors a little bit more rich. So I used the BL4, which is a cornflower blue. I tested it and I like it, but I didn't want to overuse it because I still feel the white of the paper is still there, and I need to work more on the base of the color of the wings. So I move back with the BG3, which is the turquoise, and I start feeling a little bit more of the color, and I'm being a little bit more bold with that. I feel like, okay, I know what are the ranges that this color can give me, and I think I need to be more consistent. I try to go ahead and use more of the marker, you know. At the beginning I was a little bit shy, not sure how it will I will feel about that color. But once I apply, I felt like, okay, this is nice, but I feel like it's too much on the range of blues, and I wanted to add probably a little bit of yellow. And I think back about the JO2, the mellow yellow, and I feel like a blue with some of the green colors that I have will give me a nice tone. So I start applying there around the wings, and I feel like this is nice. This is, once it dry, I feel like, okay, this is the color that I like, you know. So I start using I'm testing some combinations as I think about it, and then I go ahead and infuse the marker with some of that yellow, you know, and I work with the yellow. I wait a little bit and I start using it. I infuse it again, make it lighter, and then letting it go back to the original color. And there's always at this point of the illustrations that happens to me or many artists, is that as you're working, you might not be completely happy of what's going on in the pictures because you're actually missing some of the other colors like skin tone, hair, and you're working on a certain area for too long, and then you have to feel that you need to move on. So that's how I'm feeling here, and I'm not completely satisfied because obviously the artwork is not completed. But as I work, I feel like I'm deciding, okay, I think this color will work, and what about this combination? I do a quick test, and then I move on. I feel like I can start feeling more of that yellow and start feeling more of the white space that I have in the canvas in my illustration. Then I infuse that yellow mellow with the color top tangerine. I think tangerine was tangerine and the mellow yellow. They are great. They work really nice. And infusing here, as you can see, the yellow mellow with the color top of tangerine, and testing a little bit. Because the yellow mellow is really light. It's a light yellow. Once you use the tangerine color and infuse the yellow with the tangerine, you only need to infuse it just for a few seconds, just a little bit, because the tangerine color is kind of like way darker. So you might want just to have a few seconds, 2-3 seconds, and test it and see how you're feeling about it. Here I infuse it and it's working really well. I like to reshape my design of the feather. I try to add some shadow, try to add some areas that are more dark, and try to see how they will combine with each other. I totally encourage you to try to use the color tops. They're really fun, and you can have really fun combinations, and that's something that is like the one of the pro of these markers, that you have a lot of flexibility, but you have to test a lot as well. Now I move to the skin tone, and the markers have like two colors that I like, which is the biscuit tone and the light peach. That will be light peach is MV2, and the biscuit color is NU1. I use the biscuit color, and I am working the color tone. And I thought about probably add a little bit of a blue to the skin tones, but I want something more neutral for the skin. I want the colors around her to be the main actors, the main focus here. Okay. Here I decided to keep blending the mellow yellow, infusing the pen with the tone, and trying to have that gradation there, you know, from yellow to turquoise to blue. And these markers are great for that. I think this is something that you won't be able to do with a Copic marker, is that like smooth transition with a few colors. You can create a lot of variation. It only requires a little bit of planning, but once you have this, you can actually like create amazing color variations, and I love that. Then I move back again to the BL4 cornflower blue, and try to add details to the feathers, and work out a little bit more of the shape, a little bit of the casting shadow of the feathers, and try to give more volume for the overall wing. This was my favorite part from the illustration. Well, also coloring the hair, but that's coming soon. I think I might be jumping right now to color the hair, and for that I'm gonna be moving to the sky blue, which is BL3. I use the BL3. I thought that a proper blue will balance out and give it like a nice contrast with the green. I'm using the baby blue BL3. A little bit on the solid side. I'm not infusing it too much. Then I come up with this idea that I would like to blend this baby blue with some bubblegum pink color with the PK3. And as I'm working with the baby blue, I start infusing a little bit of the marker to create some of a light tone. And this is when the overlaying the colors will come handy. I did already a test. You can see it on the left side, the baby blue and that bubblegum pink. So as I color, I think about the highlights. I like to save the white for the highlights. And here I come and I start using the PK3, the bubblegum color. And I start testing it. Use a little bit in the bangs of this girl, and just to see what kind of tone it gives me. Then don't forget to complete the whole hair. Sometimes I tend to color certain areas, then I forget. Like I'm forgetting some sections, so I have to go back to it and finish it. So once I have this baby blue working, I think how this overlay will work, and I'm seeing that the light is getting a little bit lighter in the front, so I use the bubblegum marker, and I infuse it in using the mixing chamber, and you can see how the colors start coming out. and it will look a little bit dark, but once it dry, it created a lovely effect that I'm gonna be using for other future illustrations. And that's one of the cool things about these markers, that as you're working with them, you start finding new ways of mixing them and great combinations to explore. And you have like great combinations to explore. Like as you can see, as it dries, I think it's drying a little bit more now, the color will come and pop up more. So that's kind of what I wanted with these markers and with the hair of this girl. Then I start using the color pencils, the Chameleon color pencils. I like to test a little bit, testing a dark tone for the hair. I want some textures too, so if I can use the color pencil to add some texture, then it will be great. I feel like the illustration will benefit a lot by having some color pencil texture. And I like to apply the color pencil, and then after that I like to use some of the colorless blender, that will be CB, and the colorless blender will kind of even out the texture. As I work with the hair, I jump a little bit further, and I go back to my cornflower blue BL4, and I want to see more completion on my illustration. I think about how the wings are gonna give some cast some shadow on top of her hair, and the front layer of the hair is casting some shadow on the sides. So I start thinking about more about the shadows and less about the coloring gradations. I think like having that BL4 will help me to, you know, add detail. I change the tip. I go from different kind of tips from the marker, and while it doesn't seem too drastic at the beginning, once you see the illustration in close-up, you will see the texture popping up and all that. And now I'm going back to all the flowers. I feel like now that I have the hair, I have the wings completed, and I need to decide what I'm gonna do with the rest of the white spots that I have. It's like I'm making tiny decisions. How can I add more volume or more shadows to my illustration? And with that, I go ahead and I try again these color pencils. I go with the green, and this is about testing. I feel that the color pencil might be too light, so I go ahead and instead of using the color pencil, I start using the JG3, which is the grass green. The grass green will help me to define better the shadows of my illustration. Especially for the lips, it's good to have one side light and the other side a little bit dark. I also have to decide and think about which areas I want to fill completely with the marker, and with other areas I want to leave with some lighter tones. It's all about pushing and pulling elements of the picture with the markers, with coloring and rendering. Then I move to PK2, that will be Dusty Rose, and I infuse it with in the mixing chamber to create that light version of the color. And sometimes when I apply the color, I know that that's the color I want, but if I infuse it a little bit, maybe I can have a lighter version of it, and I can play a little bit more after that with the same color, having a little bit of variation too. Then I move, and I think it's time to introduce some of the red. I'm thinking about all the range of colors that I have, and I feel that it is time to move to that RD2, which is the red coral. And there's a nice red. It's not too dark, not too light, and there I need to bring some of that red into my illustration. I have some yellow, but I need to push it more to like a red tone. And again, using the color pencil here to bring some texture to the flower and maybe some, like, you know, some light variation to it. So it's always good to mix the media, and for this is great because of the chameleons. They have all of that cover. They have already the colors, the color pencils, and they have the markers and the mixing, the color tops. So the range is pretty good, and the material is already available, so you can try all of these combinations. And yeah, you actually don't need to have 500 markers. You know, you can have, with the set that is available right now, the 52 set, you can achieve a lot of coloring and a lot of like color variation with the tones. So I think that's the good selling point of these markers, and they work really well. So I totally recommend you, if you still like wondering about these markers, I will suggest you to try it with patience, and it will pay off. Now I'm just completing the illustration. I feel that I want to bring more of that exotic bird, and instead of coloring these feathers with one color, I think I want to have 3 colors: red, yellow, and blue. So I'm having this more like very tropical, with yellow, green, and blue. And I wait a little bit for the colors to dry. I use the tangerine instead of the red because I want to have a transition. So I infuse again the mellow yellow with the tangerine color top, and it will start giving me that gradation and color variation that I'm looking for. Although I think that later on I will start using a little bit more of the red coral to push the reds, you know. Some of these exotic birds are really unique, and the colors are super bright. It's really interesting seeing, like, in real life, it's like so powerful and bright. So that's what I did here. I came back with the red coral and I started adding more color variation. And for this I didn't do too much color blending with the mixing chamber, because I want to have that transition more like designing the pattern of the coloring instead of blending it. That will give the illustration more of a manga anime style, to have some kind of like strong transition instead of a soft transition, you know. If you know how coloring for animation works, then the transitions of colors are like really kind of solid transitions, and I want to have that feeling too in the illustration. I want to have some soft areas and then some hard transition areas. Then I move back to my turquoise color. That's the BG3. Start filling the rest of the colors, and even this blue I want to cover. I feel it looks the same as the hair, and I want to change that, you know. And at this point I already feel like, okay, this is going to a great direction. The mixing of the colors and everything is working really well. And I thought, what if I use again the BL4, the cornflower blue, to have that variation inside the blue, you know, kind of similar to what I did in the feathers in the top, to the wings, sorry. But now I'm being more bold and trying to have that shadow being cast from the hair. I like to, you know, add some dark tones, especially around the neck, that will help me bring the hair and the feather forward. And these areas are small, so they're easy to blend. So think about that. I try to blend larger areas in small sections, and it will work better. And I feel that now I'm moving more to detailing and working out more of the shadows and trying to bring more of that, more of like shadows, you know, like that flower is casting some shadows on top of the other elements, as well as the feather. I feel like if I do an outline with the tangerine, it will like it will feel more of like it will have a tattoo kind of style of coloring, you know. So I do that there, and it works pretty well. And since I like the effect that it did there, I moved to the inside of the feather of the wings, and I pushed the yellow using the tangerine, you know. Using the tangerine, I start pushing more that wing in the inside of the wing. Because at the beginning you might feel like if you use too much a darker tone, you might lose the main color. Well, actually you have to play it well. That's why I like to cover the main areas with a flat color, like I did with the mellow yellow at the beginning, because then the other colors will be overlaying on top of that base, and it will feel solid and united. The colors will feel more, they are reacting to each other instead of reacting with the white of a paper. And that's the color rolling there. Then I stop a little bit and I start thinking about, okay, now what about the eyes? I need to color the eyes, and I need to start filling the face. I think that now I want to really bring that character to life, so I'm gonna start working on that after, you know, adding more details on the feather. I like a lot how the feather came out. So I found out that by pushing a little bit, as I did with the hair, I can go a little bit dark with the bullet point brush there. You know, it's really great to add details. Exactly, yeah. So take your time. My advice is to take your time and then go ahead and work on top of it. I go back again to the face, and as I said, I work with the bisque color and the light peach. The light peach will give me that shadow tone, help me with the shading of the skin. So I use that light peach. It works really well with the bisque color. And it's great because it's not a super bright light peach, and that will help to bring the colors around the character forward. I use the PK2, and I use a little bit of a tone, and here I'm getting rid of that tone sometimes. You know, the inside of the eye is like a reddish gray, so that worked really well. And go back again to the mellow yellow. I feel like a yellow eyes will work well. And I work with some of the tangerine again. Once I do this, you can start feeling the character. It's really amazing when that happens. So I go again with the PK2 Dusty Rose, and it might be too dull, so I think I bring a little bit of the red with the red coral. I infuse it for 2 seconds, and then I bring that red, and now that red is coming to the inside of the mouth, and now things are working. Now go ahead with the coral, red coral, and I add some like a tribal marks on her face, trying to bring more of that design. And from now on, it will be more about the detailing and fixing and focusing more on detailing the illustration. So far, I like what I have, and I think it's working really, really, really good. You only have to be patient with it, and that's one of the things when using markers. You have to be patient, you have to enjoy the process, and then try to figure out what else could work. I feel like I want to reinforce the line art, and instead of using black, I use the marker, the red marker or the green marker, because I want to, you know, add that edge or outline to the flowers, try to bring a little bit more of design there. I go back again with my color pencils, and this is the stage where I use like touching up the illustration. Maybe I need more color here, maybe I don't need to have that much highlights on this side of the head, and it's all about refining and adding, as I said, details. I do the same as I did with the flowers. I use the green, the dark green, to go over the line art and redraw a little bit of the design. Because when you have the colors, when you have the inks first and then you color it, you feel that some of the lines are getting lost or are too light. And personally, I like to bring the line art back again. I enjoy the line art a lot, so that's what I do. Even with this blue, I go with the BL6 and I start pushing more the blue, especially in the dark areas, in dark sections of the hair. I want to bring that to, I want to help the line art come back. Take your time, think twice, and then act. I totally encourage you downloading this design, and then after downloading the design, try to print different copies of it. Maybe it's printed like in a smaller size, and then try different variations and different combinations. And I think that's when you find the fun and the enjoyment of working with these markers. With the wings, I thought that I might want to go back with my ink tool and reinforce the line art, because as I say, when you see it in person, it doesn't look that thick, and I think like after like printing it out, you might lose some of the sharpness of the ink. Also, you have that amazing marker, which is the D, which is the detail pen. So I'm using the detail pen to fill the black areas again with black and add more contrast. This is my style of illustration, so that's why I use a lot of the line art, and I like to go back to the line art to reinforce what I have done before. But definitely try to use all the tools with the marker set. The more you use these markers, the more tricks and combinations that you find by using them. It's just like experience. When I started using these markers, I didn't expect to have this wide range of colors and these combinations. So after like trying a few illustrations and doing a bunch of combinations, I have a good sense of what I like, or what these colors can bring. Yeah, as I said, I go back to add more detail. I feel that hair was too bright, and maybe I want to add a little bit of shadow or like a darker tone under the highlights. By having that, it feels like that kind of chrome type of material feel. So it's up to you. It's more on your preference. That's my preference when using the markers, is to add that dark tone under the highlights. It brings that, it pops up more the highlights. So I'm just working on that. I stop a little bit and analyze. I think about what can be done to enhance this illustration. So here it is. After working it and adding all the details and everything, you can see what is the final result of this. It was an amazing work that I did here. I really enjoy doing this, and I hope you guys enjoy it too. You can find these files on the website of the Chameleon markers. You can find more information about these markers on the Chameleon page, as well as other online video tutorials that I will be uploading on my channel and on my Patreon. So feel free to try these markers and have a lot of fun. As here you can see also some of the final texture. That's why I did this zoom for the illustration. You can see the texture after blending the markers and after using the color pens and using the color pencils and using all the tools. So after this, I feel free to scan it and then probably change a little bit the color variations in Photoshop and complete the illustrations, you know. So just remember to have fun with these markers. These markers are great. They're easy to carry around and they're amazing product. I totally recommend it. Okay, so thank you very much for checking this video tutorial. I hope you have learned a few tips and tricks and you have enjoyed my process. I hope to see you soon and enjoy this video tutorial. Thank you very much and goodbye.